Got me wondering how I got into this mix.
This is Derek Bros. I'm here in Las Vegas at the Some Fancy Hotel. Check it out.
Palms Place.
Palms Place, and I'm here with an old friend who you guys may remember, Morgan Rockwell.
What's up, everybody?
All right, Morgan. So you got some new news to share with us.
Yes.
What's the latest thing going on?
Well, right now I'm looking at Bitcoin and it's looking pretty stable while the stock markets are crashing. And I'm watching Bloomberg over there, watching everything red and oil and gold and silver seem to kind of be bouncing back. So I'm pretty happy that I have Bitcoin in my life right now because it's like my savings, so I'm not losing anything.
The last time we talked to you, you were in Chula Vista. You were working with Bitcoin Kinetics and the BitSwitch.
Mm-hmm.
Briefly catch us up with what you're working on now. What's happened since with Bitcoin Kinetics? What's the newest
So
stuff?
Bitcoin Kinetics has moved like 4 cities in the last 3 years, and for the last 17 months we were in a gas station in Upper Lake, California, trying to turn the town into Blockchain Valley and show the merchants of the town that they all could accept Bitcoin. We put a 2-way Bitcoin ATM in the shop. The bank in town actually closed, so we were trying to actually transition the entire town over to Bitcoin, otherwise the town wouldn't have a financial institution. And so we upgraded our BitSwitch from a small Raspberry, or a large Raspberry Pi and Arduino, to a small Intel Edison, and now it's portable, wireless, Bluetooth, and it's got a battery on it. And so what we've done is tried to connect with Intel so that we could sell more of these things by putting the Bitcoin blockchain on them. And basically I've been trying to step into the corporate world with Bitcoin so I can make some business deals with the corporations that have these types of hardware, because we got Samsung, Qualcomm, Intel, and only so many people that make computers that we could use to mine and run full nodes. And this has become a full node, so I was working with Chris Ellis, the Feathercoin developer, on running full nodes, and he was just on Max Kaiser talking about full nodes. And this was the first portable full node ever made. So you can put it in your pocket and walk around the strip, and miners can mine from your full node. And eventually the nodes will be paid, and that's what we're trying to do now, is find a way to monetize the actual record of the blockchain, because the mining's kind of become centralized. There's a bunch of big warehouses mining, and basically the little kids aren't getting profits from mining from their Xboxes anymore. So now would like to find a new way to incentivize people to use Bitcoin by basically keeping a record of the entire blockchain and paying them for that.
Was that your weed delivery?
No, that was local Bitcoin.
I want to make sure you didn't have anything to go. Okay, so
No, I'll get
okay.
one now.
Well, the crypto anarchists out there, the decentralized minded, they hear you talking about Bitcoin and corporate entities.
Yeah.
That's some scary words you're putting on there.
I know.
Explain to the average layman who hears that and who got into Bitcoin or is interested in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency because of decentralized, these sort of anti-corporate values, and how incorporating Bitcoin could be helpful.
In my mind, since I was a little kid, I've looked at a very separate way of the government, the banks, corporations, and people. And in our time now, corporations and people are merging, banks are corporations, governments and banks, they're kind of not separated anymore. And I was raised by military people, so I always was told the military don't really listen to the government all the time. And in my mind, when people say the government, they put them together. When people say corporations or banks, it's kind of a weird label. And in my mind, a corporation is nothing more than a contract, a piece of paper, agreement, a consortium, or like it says, corpus, a body of people. And right now, Bitcoin is a body of people, miners, debaters on the forums, but people are being deleted from forums. There's censorship. They had to change forum actual Reddit hashtags to BTC from Bitcoin because people were being deleted. And so the central powers of communication services and basically storage of Bitcoin services or miners, that's going to be inevitable for money. What I would like to do is find a way for the Bitcoin community to really upgrade itself from a bunch of kids on the internet to a bunch of kids on the internet with legal precedence, so they have rights, so that they all can basically be a decentralized employee of this corporation, get shares, and the law says that they are owed, they could sue, they have rights. Right now, there are corporations like Coinbase and BitPay that are corporations,
and they are at a position where they could literally change Bitcoin's protocol, but they're not branding themselves for the entire economy. They're branding themselves for their technology, their service, their product. I would like to see an entity created, which I've formed paperwork to do, to put Bitcoin in a situation where it has a legal entity in paperwork, so that if people want to build a campus like the Googleplex and all the Bitcoiners want to come collaborate physically, they can. Otherwise, the full nodes are in a building somewhere. Bitcoin Inc. is storing full nodes. Now there's always going to be a record at a corporation that basically can't be shut down by the government without lawsuits. And so you could go arrest a person and shut down their miners or nodes, but shutting down a corporation's full nodes is going to be a lot harder of a task for the United States government or anyone to do.
So this doesn't make you, put you in any more control over Bitcoin, obviously.
No, no one can, because no matter how many miners there are, even if Bill Gates wanted to mine every Microsoft computer right now, the difficulty rate would go up in 2 weeks, and eventually the equipment would be worthless and people would compete with him. So the miners control Bitcoin, and basically the code that says how much is created, they can't change that. They're trying to by changing our community.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So the fork that you just mentioned.
Hold on a second. Give me a second. I think Weed Man might be here.
You're fine.
I just got a missed call.
I was like, that might be another video. Weed delivery in Vegas.
Hey, and I don't know if you know, but I've been working for Marshall at Trees.
No shit.
I made the weed drone. The bit switch was in it. The
nice.
first drone that delivered weed legally in the United States had the bit switch on it. So I've tried to put bit switch in all these good markets. I've tried to put Bitcoin in all these good markets. I love that you can buy weed from Marshall's company, and it's a startup, and it's got that hype, the cool, youthful way of using Bitcoin for a new industry. It's not just money, it's money that they can use that they can't use Visa and MasterCard in the cannabis industry.
Let's talk about the fork though for a minute. So Bitcoin, I guess for those who are unaware, as succinctly as possible, explain the Bitcoin fork. This attempt to sort of divide the community and where that's at and what that means for the average Bitcoin user.
Well, when Bitcoin first started and Satoshi put it out there, he put out the idea, and then he put out the code, and then he started mining, and then he actually sent transactions to Finney, and then it started. And other people got involved. He kind of stepped back and really did a little code editing for a few more months, but let other people put their consensus and their ideas into Bitcoin. And then he let Gavin put his email on the website, and he took his off, and he disappeared. And Gavin says he hasn't heard from him since. We've seen a few times his email send messages saying, I'm not Satoshi, I'm not this guy. Mm-hmm. But other than that, the communication is gone. And that's our leader. That should be our Mark Zuckerberg and our Bill Gates, but we don't have one. So because of that, in my mind, all the American people who see these archetypes of CEO and they know that one's not there, they're going to try to make it theirs. And Bitcoin has plenty of clones and copies like Litecoin and all these side chains that'll plug into it. It's got protocols like Counterparty and Ethereum on top, but Bitcoin is the rail that makes them all worth anything because it's been there, and it's the strongest network. It's 1 exahash. Nothing on earth is 1 exahash. It is the fastest supercomputer still. And the only way that is happening is people are getting paid to make it run. And right now, if you double the blockchain size to 2 megabytes, in the future, you might be able to do whatever you want just because the precedence of you changing it is now allowed.
So the fork situation, though, is essentially those...
it's not the matter of the scale and the numbers, it's a matter of how it's going about. Who is allowing the change? Who's deciding on...
What is the change that's being proposed, though? So
the block size is 1 megabyte. Right now, you could get 1,000 to 3,000 transactions in one block. 10 minutes, the most you could get, maybe 4 or 5. If you cut data out of it, like only using part of the blockchain, or start what segregated witness says, taking the signatures out of the transaction, 40% less data. You could put 10,000 transactions in a block. So we can scale it up 4 times using these other things. They want billions of transactions a second, 10,000 a second like Visa. We need to be competitive. So there are people in that industry that come into Bitcoin and say, scale it up, change the numbers, and it will work like us.
So you mean change the amount, like basically change
The
it
amount
so
of
that the
transactions
amount of
that happen in a
tracks.
second.
Right now, there's a limit to the amount of transactions.
And that limit is
But for it
important.
to go mainstream, some people within the community want to like, hey, we need to do this
Do we
new
want
change.
remittance, $1 billion moved in 10 minutes, or do we want $1 billion $1 transactions moved in 10 minutes? Do we want payment or remittance? Some people are trying to do a little both. Bitcoin should not really be both or either. It's kind of something much bigger than all that. It could be used for all these things, but changing its underlying technology means now who's going to change it for the next 100 years? And the precedence of that is scary to me, not necessarily the numbers, because if Bitcoin fails, if it fails, there's another coin. So it's not the matter of actually changing the numbers and making it a beautiful piece of technology. It's about changing the numbers because you decided to do so and now no one trusts it.
So if the fork does, or eventually happen, or if
There's plenty of forks
small-
have happened before.
But if a small group of people at this point are able to decide, hey, we need to, change the amount of transaction or double, the block size, do these different things that are going to actually affect the way Bitcoin is used, will that in effect give them more control over the Bitcoin community?
Definitely, because it's a fear-based economy. This is supply and demand. You really only can buy how much Bitcoin is there, and you can only sell what people want to buy. And when you can basically manipulate the buyers and sellers with fear or with guidance, that price is going to change with their guidance or fear. And right now the fear is oil's dropping, I want to buy Bitcoin. But what if the fear is the CEO of Bitcoin just killed a kid with his car on the street? Is it going to drop? That's why there is no CEO of Bitcoin. That's why Satoshi never did that. But really, Satoshi might not be an American citizen where the corporate world is Delaware and Nevada and taxes, and that's why people form corporations here, because it's profitable. Maybe he couldn't legally do that. Either way, Bitcoin as a science technology is going to be taken by all these banking businesses, and they're going to make products out of it. I would like to see Bitcoin become a product of its own, the same way Facebook, Google, and Apple have products of their own. But the community owns that, not some entitled board. The board is picked by shareholders. That's a real democracy in my mind compared to like Reddit.
So in effect, in some way, by attempting to form a corporation around Bitcoin, it actually could help keep it from becoming centralized.
Yeah, because really the bank will take it, say they made everything, call it Bankcoin, and it's centralized. And then no one wants to use Bitcoin anymore. Because why would you? They got all the good shit.
I want to talk about that for a minute. For where people talk about, there of course have been since the beginning of Bitcoin, and people have fears of things like the New World Order using some type of single currency, digital currency. People have had fears for that for a long time.
I was raised by a Catholic, so I heard the 666 my whole life, and my mom told me when I was 7, don't let them put one of these in your wrist. You won't be able to buy or sell without it. And so that metaphor in my mind has been there since day one.
Well, what about people who think that, especially with this push towards centralization, and like you were mentioning earlier, how Bank of America and these various institutions are starting to become interested in Bitcoin and using it for maybe to replace the dollar, et cetera. What do you say to the people who have those fears that, hey, they're going to capitalize on this technology to make it this new global currency?
Be involved in Bitcoin. Protect it. If you really care, come work for Bitcoin, build something for Bitcoin, fight for Bitcoin, go on the internet and talk about it. Make sure people know what it is and what it's not going to be by the bank size, because it's our money. And I wasn't told what a dollar was until I was past puberty. That's dangerous. I didn't know what it was, and I was using it to buy food. And I really have been focusing on teaching kids this, because in the future, when the banks Bitcoin is normalized and you're born and Bitcoin is all you know, and they could turn off your address, and you don't think there's another opportunity or solution or another altcoin, you just think that's the only one that exists because they basically publicized it out of the public. That's what I fear, is propaganda is legal in the United States. And really, I'm a CEO of Bitcoin now, and I can hire a lawyer to sue anyone on the news that says propaganda about Bitcoin. Because really, anyone could say anything they want in the United States, but if you're defaming a product, then the lawyers get to step in. And right now, Bitcoin has really no one protecting it on that front. It's kind of like, go ahead, do whatever you want.
And on the altcoin front, do you think, like you said earlier, that Bitcoin, the protocol for Bitcoin is everything else runs off of that?
And we have never replaced TCP. We still use it.
So you
We've
think
upgraded IPv4.
no matter
6.
what happens to Bitcoin,
there.
even for instance, say like you talked to, if it became Bankcoin and Bank of America,
they're still going to be using the Bitcoin blockchain.
Would that lead to a rise though in some other alternative alt currency?
Oh, yes, because.
But would it still be ran on that same blockchain, or would this, would that finally be the, the
Bitcoin,
catalyst
I
for
really
a new?
think is going to become as a reserve, like you say, reserve currency, like how gold used to be, and silver in our Constitution is supposed to be the currency of the dollar. I really think that something like Litecoin, the way that it's a little more ASIC proof, as they say, and a little more distributed, I think something's going to copy that and become the crypto dollar. And when anyone ever questions its validity, it can be exchanged for Bitcoin. It's valued by Bitcoin. Don't worry, it's backed by Bitcoin. They won't say that, but the community knows that Bitcoin's worth something, and the fact that you can exchange it means that they can fix the point of $1 is worth this many Satoshis always. In the same way, this many grains of gold was worth $1 back in the day. So it's going to be no different, but now the difference is there's a ledger of it all. And those people that run the world love that. That's why Davos and IMF and the Council on Foreign Relations and everyone who thinks they're an Illuminatiist frat boy loves Bitcoin, because you can watch it. And we've never been able to watch money. But I don't think my grandkids will care about money. This is going to be the Star Trek credit, and we're going to be looking back and seeing how much sugar tokens, glucose tokens, how many births and death tokens happen for data, so that we know how to be a better species in society. Robot, give me tea, 1 Satoshi. It's just so the robot knows how much tea to grow tomorrow. It's not, our kids aren't going to save money. And really, like in Star Trek, credit, well, that's a word we made up.
Data packets.
It's going to be something very different than what we see. Because my grandfather, try to explain to grandfather what Bitcoin is when he saw hyperinflation in World War II. Like, do you know how hard that is to explain to our grandkids? We don't even know.
So does, if those changes are, where Bitcoin's at now, and where, depending on the future, whether that remains decentralized or, like you said, if it becomes more centralized and some new altcoin pops up, do either one of those situations, where we are at now and these possible futures of Bitcoin, do either of those remove the problems that we have currently with fractional reserve banking, with the monopoly on currency? Or is this just an extension of the same problem? Mt.
Cox, example, took everyone's Bitcoin, held everyone's Bitcoin, fractional reserved it, told everyone they still had it, let them trade fake coins on a PHP crappy website, but those coins weren't there anymore. It was fractional reserved. He took it all out, and they were using test coins, basically. So that exists, and that can happen in the whole world of debt swaps, of derivatives, of shorting, and all the gambling on prices. That's all coming to Bitcoin. There are companies making products to do that,
so
because they feel that, hey, if Wall Street can make profit doing that, why can't we make profit doing it this way? And all these businesses basically have built around Bitcoin are profit motivated. I feel that Bitcoin needs a unprofit motivated corporation, like a public benefits corporation, like Kickstarter, to basically say, we obviously need to make profits to run this business and pay you, but we're not here for profits, we're here to make sure the full nodes run. Just like Kickstarter says, we're not here for profits, we're to make sure you can invest in your product. So I feel that a corporation in paperwork, if I say this and sign it and do it, and I die, this entity could live till 2140, just like Walmart, and when the last Bitcoin comes out, the full nodes will still be running in some Bitcoin Inc. data center. That doesn't mean miners and nodes will be everywhere. That means that in the event that they all shut down, or the government wants to sue them all or arrest them all, come take our solar panel covered data center down. As corporations got lawyers, we will sue you for the next 100 years. So you can't do that to a person, but that's the rights and powers of a corporation. And I think it's like fire. You got to use it for a good thing. Obviously, people use corporations to kill people and destroy the earth and do bad things. But it's a gun. Guns don't kill people. Corporations don't kill the earth. People do. And I know that I've ran 7 companies into the ground since I was 12. So I've learned lessons on what not to do. So I feel confident that I could do this and maybe hand it off to someone else in the future. Because it needs to be done by the rules if we want to change the rules. Like I made BitCongress because I wanted to write a program so people could write rules on the blockchain and send Bitcoin appropriations and taxes and vote on things, and the blockchain keeps the record of it all. If something like that actually becomes used by society, you could use that to pick on who's in charge of a company. You could use that to pick your board. You could use that to really say who owns what. And my whole goal in doing this Bitcoin stuff is to eat. Bitcoin has fed me for 6 years now, and I know that it's gonna feed a lot of kids. So I really get emotional, especially in the internet, when I see people like saying, we're gonna do this to Bitcoin, and we're gonna fork it, and we're gonna do this. And all I could think of is, you're gonna starve my fucking grandkids. I don't like that, and I wanna make sure that my grandkids have a fair fight against the bankers who are trying to say, we're gonna control your money now. Because I don't have kids, I don't have grandkids. And the idea of that continuing our species should be done proper, and it shouldn't really be done by 80-year-old guys. It should be done by the 16-year-old with 1,000 Bitcoins, because his Xbox was mining them. Like, I've told kids like that, you're gonna be the new JP Morgan. People are gonna come borrow Bitcoin from you. You better learn business. And all these Bitcoiners, they're learning money, but they're not learning business. They're not learning the corporate world. They're not learning the investors. They're not learning that Brock Pierce is basically a head of the Bitcoin Foundation, and now he's an investor in almost all the corporations. So go ask Brock, because Brock could be like the CEO of all of Bitcoin. And that's what people don't understand. Who do we talk to here? Who do we point our fingers at? And who do we send the lawyers after? Because that's America. And without that, America don't give a fuck about Bitcoin.
So one last real simple question, basic question. For people who are interested in getting involved with Bitcoin, purchasing Bitcoin, what's a good place to start? Where do you
Well,
recommend?
if you're in Las Vegas, there's 11 ATMs on the Strip. All you gotta do is go show your ID. First time, you never have to do it again, because that's money laundering law, anti-money laundering. Put your ID in that thing, you got a cell phone, you show your Bitcoin address, you shove up to $3,000 in, you have Bitcoin on your phone. So you could buy $10, $1, $5. That's the simplest way I've found. That's why I moved here and formed the corporation here, because there's literally 10 bank branches on the Strip. In San Diego, they just got the first one. And that's where I'm from, and it's really difficult. I literally had a Bitcoin ATM in my lobby. I'd wake up in the morning, you guys wanna go get some Carl's Jr.? Oh, here, I'll sell some Bitcoin, now we have some cash, let's go buy food. The convenience of that is important. And the ATM is probably the simplest way anyone can learn, because if you've ever used an ATM, the Bitcoin ATM is pretty close. Otherwise, you have to connect your banks to these exchanges, and you have to do what I do and go on local Bitcoins and trade with a bunch of strangers and have trust with their numbers. Have they traded before? Are they frauds? And that scares the community. In the future, if Bank of America literally let you buy Bitcoin, or the post office, it might be good for the whole community. They may make a bunch of money doing that, but really, you go into the post office or the bank every day and I want some Bitcoin, here's my phone, beep. That would really scale up use. But then they would do what they want to do. So there needs to be compartmentalization. Like, that's why the governments and militaries and all that do compartmentalization. Because if you give everyone full control of everything, it's bad. The government's decentralized. And I think the problem is decentralization is hyped up like this great freaking cure to everything. The government really is decentralized. That's why they don't talk to each other. So there's certain problems in there. Like, the banks are central, but the government's decentral because they don't talk to anyone in the government. So those kind of things we really need to talk about as a society. We can learn this all from Bitcoin, but we got to change that.
So if you don't have a Bitcoin ATM, or if you're weary of localbitcoins.com, like, what other options are available for people to get in?
Mycelium, the wallet Mycelium, is basically the Bitcoin's on your phone, no server holding your keys. They have a buy-sell section, exactly like local Bitcoins, within the wallet. Kind of easy, just looks like buy-sell. I want to buy $10, and it shows up on your wallet. Airbit's just hooked up with Cloudera. You can buy and sell Bitcoin through the Airbit's wallet directly, but you got to tell them your bank. You got to tell them your social security.
So is there any option without adding a bank account, without
local
like,
Bitcoins? You go buy prepaid cards.
That's what I've used.
You PayPal. You can literally say, meet me on the corner over here. Cash, phone. I mean, I've met at Starbucks and 10,000 in an envelope. Here's some Bitcoin. Thanks. And you gotta, now I gotta follow the law. What's this guy's name? That's more than the laws allows for the day. So if you're trying to like buy millions of dollars in Bitcoin, go make a friend with a banker. But if you're like, I want to buy a whole Bitcoin, you can find someone on the street pretty easy. You just got to go on the website. It's eBay of Bitcoin. Meet me here. Starbucks is the best place, really. If you can't get an ATM, you'll find someone at Starbucks. So.
Anything else? Where can people find out more about what this next project you're working on?
So I have the website bitcoininc.org, and eventually a little 17-year-old kid has bitcoininc.com and the Twitter handle, and is trying to hustle me for $4,000 for it. So I might have that soon. But bitcoininc.org. And you could see, I'll put the business plans up there. I have articles of incorporation, and I'm going to put bylaws and basically have the community pitch in and try to form a business plan so that the community can be involved in this corporation fully from the beginning. And eventually the community can say, we want to elect a board, and it could have Bitcoin celebrities, and maybe Bitcoin becomes something that they talk about on TV as like, oh, Google, Facebook, it's great for America and they pay taxes. And if we pay taxes as a corporation, the government will never do anything to stop that from happening. They will love it. And if a corporation could basically make money running full nodes, you don't control the currency, but we make profit. And if I could pay that profit to the government to say, leave Bitcoin alone forever, that would be the power of a corporation. Because no man on earth can tell the United States no, but Walmart and Google and Tesla do all the time. So that's what I feel is needed. Upgrade. And corporations, I think they're cool. I think it's no different than a program. And eventually they'll be programmed corporations. So you might as well learn how this works. If you want to make all these smart contracts and decentralized corporations, none of those kids have ever run a corporation that write the decentralized corporate code. That's what's problematic. You got to learn what an article, bylaws, and all this is so that you know what we're leaving and turning to the blockchain. You know where we're coming from. Your roots are important. And like, I'm a pirate. I was named after a pirate. And the Dutch East India Trading Company killed a bunch of pirates, and all those pirates thought they were decentral. But when one takes your ship and you have nothing left with a gun to your life, you become a privateer immediately. So it's a matter of life or death. We're dealing with gold, oil, and money, and Bitcoin, and food, and some people die because of all this stuff. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more of a safer environment because you, me, kids, old people, the whole spectrum of the planet is involved, whether they know it or not.
They have conquered us as a natural power. See, we are power. They deal in violence and repression. We are power. We are a part of the natural world. All of the things of the natural world are a natural part of the creation and feed off the